Good afternoon and welcome to Midday Moms. This is Dorothy Pilarski. I wanted to extend a warm welcome to each and every one of you signing on. It's always a thrill to see all of these incredible names of moms that have signed on. We have today like a remarkable guest. I was so nervous because of just how blessed we are to have Natalie McMaster. I'm going to just, share a little quick bio about Natalie, and then I'm going to tell you a little bit about our ministry, and then we're going to go back to Natalie with the questions. So, Natalie McMaster, from the rolling hills of Cape Breton, Nova Scotia, to the world's most prestigious stages, Natalie McMaster is one of Canada's most celebrated and beloved musical treasures. A fiddler and a step dancer of breathtaking energy and precision, Natalie has spent decades electrifying audiences and redefining Celtic music for new generations. A member of the Order of Canada, Natalie's remarkable career includes Juno Awards, Grammy recognition, 19 East Coast Music Awards, multiple gold album performances, alongside legendary artists. Now, I could go on and on and on, but I won't because I don't want to embarrass anyone by going on too much. But we're just thrilled to have Natalie here. Natalie, just before I play our little short ministry video, can you just say hello to the moms that have signed on?
I would love to. Hello, Midday Moms. It is an honor to be here with Dorothy today and to be connecting with you in this way on something that I have watched from time to time. I think the first one I watched was when you had Carlos Acutis' mother on. So that's how long I've been hanging out.
Yeah, no, so thank you, thank you, thank you. And today we're going to be interviewing Natalie about her book. I have a love story, but before we do that, before I go into the questions, I want to tell each and every one of you about our ministry. We're on a mission to revive motherhood as a vocation, as a call from God, and we do so primarily by helping uh, parishes start Catholic moms groups. So I'm going to share with you our short ministry video because I'm really hoping that one of you out there is going to be called to bring together women like Natalie, women like me, women like you, and to make an impact in your parishes, because that's really what it's all about, right? Is making an impact, leaving a legacy. And I've been blessed over and over and over and over again by this mom's ministry, meeting Natalie. Like how else would I have met her? She wasn't sitting at her kitchen table thinking about, oh, I want to talk to Dorothy. It's through the mom's ministry, right? So I'm going to share the ministry video, and then right after that, we'll go into the questions. Come, Holy Spirit.
Nature, we are nurturing, loving caregivers. We are social beings, made for friendship and community. We are also spiritual by nature, made by a loving God to know Him and love Him, and to pass this love of our Catholic faith on to our children. But right now, many mothers feel overextended, distracted, and exhausted. Though as Catholics, we have the community of our church, many mothers attending Mass could not name the moms sitting next to them in the pew they share. Community and support among Catholic mothers is desperately needed in this hectic and chaotic culture. Your parish needs you to bring these moms together.
Hi, my name is Dorothy Pilarski. I'm the founder of Catholic Moms Group. We at Catholic Moms Group are on a mission to revive the vocation of motherhood. We exist to bring together like-minded, faith-filled mothers who crave community and are focused on spiritual growth, Catholic teaching, and fellowship. Can you imagine a thriving, engaged mothers group at your parish? A group of moms in love with their Catholic faith, ready to serve other mothers no matter what stage of motherhood they're at. Can you imagine what a difference that would make at your parish? Starting a mothers group, it's not rocket science, but working with a team who's done it before and who's done it dozens and dozens of times sure does help. The Catholic Moms Group membership site is an online community that offers training, resources, and dozens of tools for parishes to help them start a mothers group quickly and efficiently. We're here to provide you with a clear path to launching a Catholic Moms Group at your parish. All of our materials are 100% Catholic. We have clearly laid out meetup plans for both moms groups and toddler groups. We are obedient to the magisterium of the Catholic Church. We have created dozens of tools that are going to save you time and energy. And besides that, we love our Blessed Mother. We constantly turn to her for her intercession. You can make a huge impact in your parish, so join us. We are revolutionizing the way parishes start mothers groups by providing parishes with a Catholic mothers group starter kit and by nourishing and training a community of Catholic mothers group leaders across the world. It's time to start a mothers group at your parish. Join us today. So, if any of you feel that little nudge, let us know. We're here to help you. And Natalie, in reading your book, I read it not once, I read it twice. Yes, like the last couple of days, I've been doing all of this underlining because there's just so much precious, precious information. And I keep on thinking, every young mom really needs to get a copy of this book because Natalie does just so many incredible things in this book. It's like clearly a supernatural act. The fact that she was able in her schedule to write this book, the first thing she does is describe her incredibly exhilarating and demanding, passionate career. For maybe women that don't know much about, Natalie McMaster, and they're kind of tuning in because it's Midday Moms and Dorothy sent out an email and it sounds interesting. Natalie, can you tell us about your exhilarating, demanding, amazing career? I know that's a big question. I know.
Big question. Yeah. Well, I mean, maybe I'll talk about it from the perspective of how it all gets tied up neatly in those pages, like from one cover to the other. But as far as my career goes, it was something I never planned on, something that unfolded, and there was not a lot of force. Certainly in the beginning, it wasn't like I've got to do this. I didn't know what I was doing. I went to teachers college for 4 years, and so it just kind of unfolded. And I look back and I think, well, how was that not something that was just kind of meant to be? Now, mind you, I was given the raising for that. I mean, I grew up in such a strong musical community and musical home, and I guess I don't think of myself at all as over the top by way of being a go-getter or determined or passionate or any of those things. But now as time goes on, I look back and I think maybe I kind of was. Like it didn't feel like it at the time. It just felt like what I ought to do. Like, you're playing somewhere, you have to go practice. Like, okay, well, I never, ever, ever thought I practiced enough. I'm like, oh, I hope this goes okay. But somehow it always did. And maybe there was some underlying skills there that maybe I wasn't acknowledging. But now I look back and I think, yeah, I was inclined in these sorts of ways. And but the biggest thing was my raising. I mean, like definitely, just having such a strong foundation in music and the joy of music. It was just the joy of music that that just was fuel, perfect fuel. And I had the inclinations and away I went. And here I am, 53 years old, and I look back and I mean, that book was not intended to be, oh, look at all the great things I've done at all. In fact, it wasn't until I got a gentleman, wonderful gentleman by the name of John Serafini, who we homeschool and still do a little bit, but we've done varying degrees of all sorts of different types of homeschooling. We met him through homeschooling. I ended up getting him to teach my children for like 4 or 5 years, literature and all of that umbrella. And so when my oldest daughter said, "Why don't you give this book to John and see what he says?" And that's when everything changed. And it was John who encouraged me very much. He said, "Natalie, what do you want this book to be?" And I named three things. One of them was to be entertaining. I wanted it to be an interesting read. And he said, "Well, you need to include some more stuff about your career." So I'm like, "Yeah, but I don't want it to be about, hey, look what I've done. I want it to be about, let's talk about the heart of life, which is love." But I think it really helps the book. It does make it interesting. And it also provides a framework for readers to understand, for example, what I gave up when you have to, oh, I gave that up, or I didn't tour as much, whatever. You have to know, well, what were you doing? What kind of touring were you doing? What are you talking about in your mind when you say, oh, I might have to give that up? You have to present to people what that looks like. And so for those reasons, I'm really glad I included all my career. That was kind of like a big umbrella to answer your question, just kind of an overview of the beginning and the end. There you go.
No, but I think it was extremely important that you included it because it's going to get people's attention. Like if you had gone with, strictly, I say this with caution, right? But if you had gone with strictly like a mamby-pamby book about love and family, it'd be like, yeah, blah, 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 right?
Mhm. Mhm.
But some of your accomplishments in your international travel, in your dozens and dozens and thousands of shows, like to me, it was astonishing. And there was like a certain amount of the element of like the supernatural in it. And I guess too that I think often many people assume that someone that has had the type of, professional success that you've had, that they're a kind of like a moral wreck, right?
Mhm.
And you spoke with such love and such beauty and such truth. And alongside that was this incredible professional success. Like I think that very often, I think very often people assume that if you're, successful, that sometimes that somehow, somehow you can't be a good Catholic and be extremely successful, right? And so you've been in the world, you've been tell us some of the stages that you've been on. Like, tell me a little bit. I wish I could. I want everybody to read this book. It was just, it was exhilarating. Reading it was exhilarating.
Aw, well, that's really great to hear, Dorothy. Thanks for articulating it like that.
So
Yeah,
what were some of the stages? Like, let's just because not everyone's going to pick up and read the book, and I really want some, and I am going somewhere else with this interview, so I'm not just stuck on your professionalism, like your professional success. I will take it somewhere else. So trust, okay?
I've had some crazy stages. I mean, I've played Carnegie Hall 3 times. That's kind of such a recognizable stage for everybody. And the Hollywood Bowl, I've played 3 times as well. These were not, just me. This was part of other musicians. Like the one of the Hollywood Bowl shows I did was called Celtic something. It was Celtic themed. So there were 3 bands. I was one of 3 bands. So I couldn't go fill the whole Hollywood Bowl on my own. Then I might be a little snooty, you know. But just opportunities to play with some amazing people on beautiful TV shows like over in Europe. Like just there was so much traipsing around across the world that even though the stage is some names you won't know, there were some beautiful halls and venues where I was like, how did I get here? But then on the other side of the coin too, I did well, one of the ones I referred to in the book was the barge in the middle of the water at Chattanooga, Tennessee, where there was 80,000 people down on the land. And the Carlos Santana's opening act canceled, and a few hours before the show, I got asked if I would open for him, and I didn't even know who he was. And this was 1990 something, 1994, or I don't know what year it was. But anyway, and but interesting too, some stages. I can remember a stage where I played when we were driving to this festival in the States. The signs were all written on a big piece of wood with like paint, red paint. My band called it Pig's Blood. And and so by the time we finally got to the venue, to the stage, to the festival, it was, I think there were only 20 people there. And there was a tent that wasn't much of a tent. And the stage was like two pieces of whatever. And there was like a lip. It was like, they weren't even. They weren't even. And they were drooped down and tripping hazards. And by jumpins, we played that we played our full set for 20 people and we rocked it. Like, I mean, we wanted to give the people that were there our best. And after it was over, the fellow said he was going to sell his truck to pay for us. We never ended up taking money for it, but there's all sorts of crazy stories like that.
Yeah, and I'm just again, in performances in the United States and the United Kingdom and Slovenia and Spain and Germany and France and Finland and Norway and Sweden and Italy and Japan and New Zealand. And I just kept on thinking, oh my gosh, where did this woman um, get this energy? Because I've had like a teeny weeny bit of success in delivering corporate seminars internationally, and I know that when you fly out to whether it's Hawaii or New Zealand and you've got an audience there, it's taxing, right? But it's taxing and it's exciting, and I will ask you later, you know, what do you consider to be the source of that remarkable energy? Because the stamina that I'm like, this is supernatural stamina. So the book is called I Have a Love Story. And if you pick up the book, Natalie opens up the story with how she was kind of hanging out at home and there was a phone call for her and there was a guy that was calling for her, and the whole family got really, really excited about that phone call. Now, who was that phone call from? Can you tell
My,
everyone?
my husband, I didn't know it at the time though. I didn't know it for a long time. My that phone call was my first date with my future husband, and it was somewhat of a blind date. I mean, I had a vague knowledge of what he looked like because I had one of his cassette tapes. And so there's a little picture of him on the cover of the cassette tape. And I went to see him play when I was 12 years old. When the Leahy family came to Cape Breton. Danelle's mother is from Cape Breton, which is where I'm from. And so they all came to play, and I was very young and sitting way far back, but I could see them from a distance. And for Danelle, he never knew what I looked like at all. He didn't know. He had my cassette tape that his sister had taken with her to Germany. They had been in Germany for 6 months, so he had been listening to the whole cassette over and over. And they were talking about me, and she must have seen the cover. They knew that I was, young and knew that I was from Cape Breton. They knew there was a connection there. He just had a hunch, I guess. He just felt he had to go check it out. So he drove 20 hours to take me out on a date. And he didn't even know where I lived. He didn't know anything. He just drove to Cape Breton, asked around, eventually found out I was going to teachers college. that phone call, with the phone call you referred to, Dorothy, is the one I got when I was actually at Teachers College. And yeah, we went out on a date up there. We just teenage might say, okay, that's creepy, but it just wasn't. I don't know. I mean,
Well, no, that was like the beauty of it too, right? That there was something that was guiding him. There was something that after listening to your cassette, he just had this inner sense that he had to meet this woman, right? And that woman was you. And then what I loved that you did in your book, it was incredibly brilliant, but that you started with this beautiful story, and then you said, but my love story began the day that I was born, right? And that your love story begins actually June the 13th, 1972. And I thought, this woman is brilliant, right? So you caught us with the romance, and then you said, okay, but that's not when love began. Love began way before that. Love began the day I arrived on Earth because again, it's just like I just loved it so much. And so when it says, I have a love story to tell, one thing that is very, very fortifying about your book, Natalie, is that it is just oozing with love, right?
oh,
It's because I was like, okay, there's a love story between you and this boy. Then there is the love story of the day that you were born. Then there's the love story of your mom and dad, and I want to talk about them in just a minute. Then there's the love story of your husband. Then there's the love of your Catholic faith. And then there's your love of Cape Breton and the ocean and the beauty. Then there's the love of your children. And then there's the love of the fiddle. Then there's the love of being a mom and dad. Then there's the love of cooking. And then there's the love of your house and the love of decorating it. And so um, the one thing that your book, it really did revitalize my own feelings of loving life and acknowledging all of those things. Because I think too many of us are kind of like walking around, look at the news, look at the fight I just had with my husband. But your book is really just this incredible celebration. Um, tell
well,
yeah.
Dorothy, I'm laughing, thinking we could all write the story that's not the love story too, right? I mean, it's not all. That's the one thing I didn't want to represent in the book. I thought I really don't want people thinking I'm some kind of, something I'm not. If my kids were hearing you, they'd be like, "Oh yeah, we know mom when she really gets fired up." Like, I can be like totally grouchy bear too. But that doesn't mean that's what we are. I mean, we have our moments. And I think most women look at their children, and even though we have this day to day duty and responsibility heavy on our hearts and our minds all the time, um, underneath it all, oh my gosh, we love our children. We love our children in a beautiful way, not in a, oh, what I got, so much responsibility. No, like I think most mothers, there's that beauty. Like, why do we have more children? Why do we keep this mother thing going? Like, why it exists through when they're young, but carries on till you're dead, this mother thing. And so, we have to remember that sure, life is hard and all that, but it doesn't define how um our heart's eyes and mind, like. So yeah, I you paint such a beautiful picture, and that's what the story is. And I was so fearful in the book, saying, in fact, I cut out a ton of apologies. Like, the guy helping me, John Serafini, he's like, Natalie, there must be something you can tell people without having to apologize and make sure that they know that you're not perfect. So I'm like, you're right. No one wants to hear me say, I just took a bunch of stuff out where I was saying, don't get the wrong idea. I'm not this, I'm not that. But
No, and but one of my kind of deepest frustrations oftentimes when I meet women, and I meet a lot of them, is like, can you see the good that's in front of you? Can you see the beauty in a blueberry? Can you see the beauty of the snow? Can you see the beauty of the TTC driver, right? I
Yeah.
think that, for some reason, our culture has like done this remarkable job of railroading us into the culture of death in our own eyes and minds. We don't even see all the blessings that are before us, right?
Yeah.
So I 100% agree with you that each of us could write that story. I see here, Annie Carto, which is an incredible singer, and she talks about like so much beauty. Then there's Berta's here. She's one of our mothers group leaders. She does an incredible job as a school teacher with her students. And, Christina, one of our mothers group leaders, is here. Um, and if you can't acknowledge the goodness in the beauty, whether you're a school teacher, international fiddler, or, a receptionist, you're going to be miserable, right? And your book really infused me with just that joy again, and I was so grateful for it. Now,
Can
tell
I comment? Can I take a sec to comment on that, Dorothy?
yes,
Just gonna say, thanks a lot for pointing that out because I had such a fire in me to write this book, and one of the biggest, well, one of the main reasons was to say something good about having kids because people don't say that, and good things. I want to say good things about marriage and children, the things that make the the reader want to read. Or it seems like there's a lot of stuff out there that's like, well, how many kids are you gonna have, or maybe you should consider like no kids or have your career, and you know there's a lot of like, I don't know. I just wanted to say being married and having children is so awesome. And but anyway, my point is that what you were talking about, people see the negative. I was noticing how, yeah, the world um just is negative and down, and the things that make headlines are usually evil things. And I'm like, if people hear enough heavy, bad, evil things, if that's all you're hearing, what kind of hope are you going to have for life? So I'm like, we have to start saying in different ways, like through my book, saying good things about the things around us, because that elevates, and it's pointing out the very simple um, love that is around us every day, and how the world, I think, wants to complicate matters and shout and shout and shout. In the meantime, what really sustains children to grow up to adulthood and have a great life is simple everyday love. A mom making food for her kids, you know, just a nice smile, a mother looking at her child with a genuine smile. These are the massive things that a person carries with them for the rest of their life, and they anchor them and they root them. And so, yes, I'm agreeing with what you're saying. The world does make us have kind of a bad glance at things, but you're right. Look at the blueberry, look at the driver, look at everything. There is that there, and are we seeing it or not?
yeah, and so one of our longtime listeners here, she's saying how much she really, really I really enjoyed Natalie's book. I loved how she weaved the beautiful teachings of our Catholic faith into the book without being preachy. Her beautiful story is exactly what our world needs to hear and read as a mom with an adult daughter with Down syndrome named Sadie. I especially loved reading about Natalie's experience with being the mom of a child with special needs. Now, before because I'm going to go to your faith, I am, but I want to hear about how, like, your family life growing up, because, again, I was blessed because my dad used to teach music as a Polish immigrant from Poland. During the day, he'd work at the factory. On Saturdays, he taught all the Polish immigrant kids how to play, accordion, violin, and And so I loved when you were saying to your husband that you're leaving a party and saying like that was a bad party. There was no live music in it, right? And so I grew up very much in that spirit where we always pushed the kitchen table to the side, and my dad would be playing the accordion, and my uncle would be playing, the guitar, and my brother would be playing the drums, and
Wow.
so I loved the energy of your larger extended family. Can you tell us a little bit about what it was like growing up in your family?
I'd love to. It was awesome. So, first of all, um, my mom and dad are just so great, and I know my mom's watching. That's why I'm all tickled pink here. Um, and and probably dad's watching too. Anyway, they just provided for us just simple, basic, solid everyday life. And included in that everyday life was always, the church. Dad was there. It wasn't even said. It was just lived. You go to mass every Sunday. You respect the church. Like mom and dad, we could tell that this was the pulse of their life. It just was, and it wasn't anything we analyzed. This was just our existence, and going to confession and all of those things. And I don't know that we understood it very well. Like we just trusted and lived that life. And my mom and dad uh, were and are still very charitable. I always saw them doing nice things for other people, and that was just the norm too. Somebody needs help, you help them, or if they don't know that they need help, you help them anyway. Um, and then and I had two great brothers. My brothers were always really like humor huge,
They were
humor
jokesters, right? They were like always.
huge. And my mom and dad, humor huge. Like that is right alongside of the love story. So like as an answer to life. But anyway, and then the music in that. Now the music in that for me would have been like just hearing music every day. Mom always had something playing, like usually the record player when in my very, very early memories, but then onto the cassette tapes were playing in the background, and um, then we went to functions like that was part of Cape Breton culture. You go to the local parish hall to the bazaar or whatever, and they'd have music, fiddle music, or there'd be a concert as a fundraiser for something or celebrating, you know, Robbie Burns Day or something like that. So we grew up with all that live music. And then the best part was the extension, which was my extended family. All my mom's dad's sibling, my mom and my mother and father's siblings were very music filled. And we would have great gatherings. And Uncle Buddy, who was very well known and well respected, Cape Breton fiddler, the late Buddy McMaster. He was played at all those. I heard him play live all the time. And these parties, as a kid, they were just so fun because it's like you're looking at your parents and they're all smiley and happy, and you're looking at your aunts and uncles and they're all cheerful and how are you doing? And everybody's having a little drink, or everybody's eating their favorite sweet treat or whatever, and the tunes are going, and it's just perfect. Like what could you want? And it's healthy. It's healthy too. It's not like, oh, we're at the movie theater. No, we're in amongst family and friends and music and food and joy. Everybody's happy. This happened a lot in my raising, and I try to provide that for our children. I'm putting parties on here all the time. So those things were incredibly important to how I viewed family life and music and uh, cultural occasions.
Yeah, no, and I was just I could feel the joy vicariously reading the book, right? And I just want to like sort of kind of do a shout out to all the moms. I think in our culture, we've become so busy and so driven that we forget to have parties and just relish in the company of another person. right? And I would dare to say that many people are spending more time in front of the screen than they are in front of real human beings. And I want to just, I want to put it out there that, Dorothy's telling you to host a party. I was like one of the transitions in my marriage, because that was another thing that you mentioned, like these incredible transitions. And was that I was so used to having parties and I'd be hosting them all the time. And unfortunately, I never really became talented at playing an instrument. So I'm like, okay, I'm hiring an accordionist. I'm hiring a guitarist for this party. I'm hiring someone, for my daughter's first Holy Communion. We had someone playing the harp and she was one of my daughter's friends from her school. And and so uh, I think that by creating memories, we need to have parties, right? We need to create happy parties at home. Now, tell me, because I circled examples of your mom. You kept on saying, like, my mom is the gold standard, right? And I know that she loves to cook, and I know that I think she was a stay-at-home mom, right? Yeah.
Pretty much. Did Sears for a little bit, but mostly stay at home.
Yeah, and then so tell me about your mom and dad. Like I know they drove you around like crazy for different recitals, and sometimes the drive was an hour, sometimes it was two, and sometimes they'd scold you that you weren't good enough, and then other times they'd praise you. Like, so tell me about mom and dad.
Yeah, mom and dad. Well, yeah, they just had a great balance of, responsibility and duty, and also enjoying life and being open to, sharing with people. Um, very good conversationalists, you know what I mean? Like they were social beings. Um, and so they just, and they were also intimately connected to what all of their three children were doing for pastime and for passion and for enjoyment or social, whatever it might be. So they just had a really good balance of all that. And nothing was ever too serious. I love that phrase, don't take yourself too seriously. Well, you still have to strive for excellence in life. Pardon me. But you also can't become so proud that your humility gets lost. And this is the great thing about Cape Bretoners, in particular, my parents, like I talk about in the book about how they can't take a compliment, which is true. But there's also a sweetness to that in that you never end up like believing too much that you're all that. And
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
important.
No, it's true. Like, I always say my mom was my number one fan and she was my number one critic, right? And she always told me to criticize myself. Like she said, like, stand in front of the mirror. This is what people are seeing. Like,
Yeah.
surely you can improve that, she'd say.
Right.
And so that's beautiful. Now, again, throughout the entire book, there's so many, and I want to thank you for this publicly because I think some people that are Catholic are kind of closet Catholics, and you did just such a beautiful job of demonstrating that you took your faith seriously, but it wasn't a religious book, right? So, and I thought that was extremely important because so many young women now are so far away from their faith, and the way that you laced it in there so beautifully. So one example was, that whenever you were on the road, you made a commitment to still going to mass, and sometimes you made extraordinary um, efforts, to get to mass. You mentioned confession, and you mentioned that earlier. The other thing too, can you tell us a little bit about, I know that you tell the story so beautifully in the book on how you met St. John Paul II. Can you tell us a little bit about that story? Because I was like, wow. Yeah, tell us that story.
Well, it helps to have friends in high places.
Yeah.
It's interesting in the East Coast, there are a lot of clergy that play music or dance or sing. I grew up with that, like lots of priests, like my own parish priest, in fact. I should have mentioned, there's so many things I think about. I'm like, I should have mentioned that. But I went to like a fiddle jam, we'll call it, like once a month at the Glebe House. The Glebe House in Cape Breton is what you would call the rectory.
Okay.
And once a month, yeah, we'd go there and he'd play fiddle tunes. Like he'd be leading it. He'd play for about 2 or 3 hours, and then at the end of it, he'd have pizza and pop for you. And it was always kind of like it was really cool. I was like, yeah, I like that. Wasn't over the top big party vibes or anything, but it was like really enjoyable. It was all other fiddlers, just fiddlers, young fiddlers. So that was pretty cool that he did that. But anyway, so there was a lot of clergy that were musical, and one of them was Bishop Faber MacDonald, who was from PEI, Prince Edward Island, and he was a fiddler, and I knew him, but as I got older, I got to know him better, and I forget what triggered that, but I played at his installation when he became Bishop of New Brunswick, and I remember that night was the first night I had whiskey. He offered me a whiskey. My Bishop Faber MacDonald had a big installation night. We're back at his glebe house or his rectory afterwards, and there was maybe 4 or 5 of us in the kitchen. And he said, let's all have a shot of whiskey. I thought, okay, Bishop Faber's asking me to have a shot of whiskey. I better do it. So I did. Anyway, and then he heard that I was going to Rome. Now I'll tell you how I decided to go to Rome. Just pause that there for a moment. When I was in my 20s, at some point in my early 20s, CBC wanted to do a special. They were doing some kind of TV special, and they wanted to, I guess it was on me, and they wanted to really, a portion of the production, they wanted to feature my family and me in Cape Breton and all of that. So my brother played guitar at the time, and he was really, really shy, and he said he hadn't actually played in a little while, maybe like a couple of years. And because he was just so shy, he didn't like to play it. Like when people found out that he was Natalie McMaster's brother playing or Buddy McMaster's nephew, people would say, come on, play, play. So he just did not like that. So he gave it up for a couple of years. But this performance, I said, Kevin, we're doing this family show. I would love if you would play the guitar. Like, please consider playing with me. Like, we'll do some tunes together. He played on the electric guitar. He played the tunes. So it was extra cool. Anyway, no, no, no. And he said, yeah, tell you what. I'll play the guitar on your special if you fly me to Rome. And I thought, darn right. And so he held up his end of the bargain, and I thought, I'll go with him. So the two of us went to Rome. I told Bishop Faber MacDonald, and he said, let me see about this. He said, maybe I can help you out. He got us a room at the Canadian their Canadian College for Priests, Canadian College of Priests. So we stayed there with a bunch of priests. In fact, one of those priests we stayed with became Cardinal Ouellet.
Oh my gosh.
This is before he was a cardinal. And so we stayed with them for the week. And then Bishop also mentioned that he was going to try and get us an audience with the Pope. Now, by that, I thought he meant the Wednesday audience, So we went to the Wednesday audience. We had these tickets. And we thought, oh, maybe we have a good seat. I mean, it was happening. So, like, there was piles and piles of people there, as you can imagine. And they had the Swiss guards. They were looking at our tickets. We didn't really know what they meant, what was on the tickets. So he said, oh, he was guiding us up a little further. You're up over here. So we got up a little further. We're looking for our place, wherever these tickets are for. And another fellow looks at them. He's like, oh, he's leading us over this way, up a little further. And get up a little further. We're getting closer, and we're looking at each other thinking, oh my gosh, now we're up on the stairs, and the bishop or the Pope's, little altar is right over there. And we're like, oh my gosh. And then this guard led us right up onto the stage, we'll call it. And it was all nuns and priests and cardinals, just that. And here we were sitting with,
Oh my gosh.
they still didn't know what was to come. We thought, this is amazing. So he's, there's the Pope. We're like just a few feet away from him. He's delivering his address. And at the end, this lineup forms. So we're in lineup, and then we see that the front of the line is getting a blessing from the Pope, and the line just keeps moving, and we're in it. We're like, oh my gosh. And so we got a blessing from Pope John Paul II, and I had him look me in the eye and stroke my face, and it was incredible. Yeah.
Now, I'm gonna kind of switch channels here, but at one point in your book too, you mentioned that that sometimes when you enter into playing the fiddle or you enter into the performance, that like that sometimes it kind of feels like you've entered into a different state, and sometimes you don't really even know how it's affecting your listeners, but that you communicated with such beauty and such clarity about how you felt it was important for you to almost like understand your audience, like almost to come into communion with them. It was almost as if like the grace of God was just like pouring through you. And that one man had written a letter to you about how your music had affected him and that he had been contemplating suicide, but after listening to you, he had a change of heart. Can you talk a little bit about, more like when we surrender? I always say when we surrender into whether it's the promptings of the Holy Spirit or when we surrender into the gifts that we have in service of others. Can you talk a little bit about that experience and how many lives you touched and how many young musicians you've inspired, never mind your own children. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. Well, when you're young, getting into this, you don't analyze too many things. And I was 9.5 when I started to play the fiddle. And to me, it was just about getting good. And I wanted to be the best. I would practice and do these concerts in all around Cape Breton. And there was a lot of other great fiddlers, and that encouraged me, like, oh my gosh, so and so was playing this tune or that tune, or they sound really great. And I'm like, you got to try harder. And so those were my focuses, kind of appropriate for the age, but also a bit shallow, as you go, and that's healthy and normal, that's nature. So, and as I got older and older, you're having more encounters with larger audiences, then you're starting to interact with your fans, and you're learning and you're growing and you're playing and you're playing big stages and little stages, and you just get a broader picture of everything. And I think we're all very connected. We just don't realize it. I playing on stage in front of a mass of people, in the beginning, I guess I really wanted to make them enjoy the night. I wanted to be really good. I wanted the music to translate. I'm not a vocalist. Instrumentalists don't often get hit singles. Like, when's the last time you turn on the radio and it's a famous hit single and there's no vocals? It's not that common. So, like, how is my music going to translate so that people get it and enjoy it? I know those parties, if any person was at one of those house parties, they love it. But I can't, carry the house party to the stage. I've tried. And so you just start figuring out, and especially as my faith life was growing, you start figuring out there's a bigger purpose. And then when you start here, I will not say these thoughts came before before that letter that I'll talk about in a second. But they came kind of alongside of, you're just piecing the puzzle together and the picture is becoming more clear. And so I got a number of different letters back in the day when people wrote letters, and then eventually emails and from people who had been affected by the music, some in extreme ways and some in less grand ways, but very effective ways. And then you just start realizing, okay, I'm on stage, and half the time I'm tired, or I'm might even be disinterested. I remember when I was playing 250 shows a year, there was times when I was like a little bit of a shell, you know. I always gave my most and my best, and it never stopped mattering. But you get a little bit tired of what you're playing, or tired physically or whatever. And when people are coming to you and telling you all these great things, that how it affects them, you realize this isn't really me doing this. Yes, I got to be good. I got to strive for excellence, but there's something else going on here. And you realize that you're just like we all are. Every single person is just kind of a conduit for it's a way in which God can send messages to people. I always think God works through people. He works through people. He works through music.
Yeah, yeah.
He's working through you. He's working through every single person if it's clear. If it's clear for him to work through that. And I think that when people like William, whose letter was included in the gentleman you referred to, I think when he was at that show, God, there was a time for him in his heart that was right, and I was there, and God was using me to help him see something more broad that would inspire him. And that's what happens. And Dorothy, this is not to boast for you at all, but I think what you're doing is the same sort of thing. It's in your way. The importance of connecting mothers to their faith, to refresh them and rejuvenate them, and to show the connection they have with other mothers, which can literally change the world because you impart your very little light, which is bright. We all have our little lights, and they absolutely connect with one another. I mean, I've been inspired so many times through other mothers. I'm just inspired by them. And before I had kids, I'm looking at these moms, these big families, and to me, it was so beautiful. And that has shaped my life tremendously.
Mm.
And so you are shaping lives. God is working through you. These mothers conferences that you're doing are incredibly important.
And I just want to give a shout out to Natalie MacMaster because she's one of our moms group leaders, and for years she's been trying to get you on my radar. And I've been like, oh, like a fiddler? Like, how does this work? I don't get it, right? Like, I just didn't get it. I'm like, she goes, no, no, you have to invite her to speak at the Dynamic Women of Faith conference. And like, people are always just like, always throwing stuff at me. And I'm like, okay, okay, okay. But then I'm like, okay, Pilarski, like pause for a minute. Madeline is saying this over and over and over again.
Aw.
And then when I read your book, I'm like, holy bada boom, bada bing, bada yeah. Oh my gosh. Now, so we've now tried 2 years in a row to, but your schedule wouldn't allow it. And now I'm going to really fervently pray that one year we do have you actually speaking at the day, or even like, I'm like, you don't even have to speak at the Dynamic Woman of Faith. Let's get you to Toronto and do a book signing and a wine and cheese and just have some fun, right? So, and your message, I also want to encourage all of our mothers group leaders that are tuning in, like Christina Zasowski. She's a mom of 8 and a grandmother of like soon to be, I don't know, I always say, is it 12? Is it 13? Is it 14? Whatever. And yet she makes time, in order to host 2 mothers groups. And I think the mothers group leaders, really, you have to see that, you're a mini Natalie at your parish because there aren't too many people that are open and fired up about their faith and are sharing it in a way that attracts people,
Yeah.
right?
Oh my gosh, that's so true. So true. One of the things I didn't want to do in this book was say this is do this, do that. Like I'm just gonna show the results of like a mindset, like growing up with what I did and having music and the culture of music and all those things. Because you're right, like for people to share their faith, I don't know. There's a certain taste required almost when you share with others because no one wants to be told what to do.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and they won't don't want something enforced on them. And but that's what was the most amazing thing about my parents. It was all just like they just lived the faith.
Yeah,
They
and
lived. They
yeah,
didn't have to.
and you saw it. Now, the other thing I was like, I just loved it so much, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I gotta talk to her about this. But like, there was so much beauty too in the reality that when you got your first fiddle, that you knew that you're going to play this for the rest of your life. Like that inner knowing, right? And I could relate to that like so much, and not the fiddle, obviously, but I'll never forget when I was, more in the corporate world, and I'm not in the corporate world now. But I remember when I entered into a room and a woman was delivering a seminar, I'm like, that's what I've got to do. I've got to deliver seminars, and I don't know how I'm going to get there, and I know I'm not qualified, and I don't know, but like I just like there was like this knowing, right? And before you know it, I'm delivering seminars in New Zealand. Like, how the hell did that happen? And so I want to encourage moms and women and children. Like, how did you know? Is there a way to put words to that experience, Natalie? Or
Like I don't know how those things happen. I mean, I think I look at my own kids, for example, and I would love if I mean, some of them know what they want to be in life. A lot of them are still very young. I mean, my youngest is 7, my oldest is 20. But there's ones that I'm anxious for. Oh, I'm anxious for God to show me or to show them what they're going to do or where they should put their, so I know what that feels like. And I wish that it could just happen. What's the answer? How does that happen for someone? I don't know. For me, it happened when I started the first day I picked up my fiddle. Now, I didn't recognize it as some epiphany or something like that.
how
I,
old were you?
I was 9 and a half.
You were 9.5. Okay. Uh-huh.
Yeah, I got this little fiddle from my grand uncle in Boston, but through my other uncle Buddy. And when I was playing it that first night, learning Twinkle Little Star, I just remember knowing that, oh, I'll never not play. I'll never not play. It's how I thought about it. Because I thought, well, you can't do this is not going to be something. I never thought of like a job and a career and those types of things. I just assumed I'll be a teacher, I'll be this or I'll be that, but I'll always play. I'll always play. So it turns out I never did have another job ever. Never once had another job of any sort. I only ever played the fiddle. But I didn't know that at the time. But I just knew whatever life would bring me, I'd still always play the fiddle.
Just
So
beautiful, like just and the possibility of that, right? Like so many times we dismiss things as women because we think, oh, that's not possible. It's not possible that my child, the only thing they would ever do is play the ukulele or play the fiddle, or we reduce, like we're so eager to push our kids into a cubicle. And I'm like, you're gonna kill them. Don't kill them in a cubicle, right? So it's just like what a divine gift.
it was a nice, beautiful thing. And like I said, I didn't know it at the time. One of my kids. Well, my mother doesn't know that. Like, she probably read it for the first time in the book. Like, that was just a thought I had. I never said this out loud. I never said, hey, I'm always going to do this. I never, ever, ever uttered that until I wrote that book.
There were
Um, so how does that happen? I don't know. I mean, some priest asked me once, oh, you must pray before every show you go on. And I'm like, I never pray before any show I go on. And I realized that my prayers aren't compartmentalized kind of in that way. They're more like I go to mass, I pray the rosary, I'll do a Divine Mercy chaplet, I'll find a book of prayers, pray individual prayers, I'll talk to God, I'll hurt myself and say, oh my God, help me, like, oh please Lord, like this is how prayer is integrated in my life. And I certainly want it to be integrated even more. There's no question. I never satisfy the amount that I want to. I mean, there's some days that all I get out of me is the grace before meals or something, which thank God that's a habit. Thank God that's it. So do want to say that it's so great to have habits of prayer, because then look what happens. You end up praying to God and you didn't even have to think about it or whatever. But oh gosh, Dorothy, I've lost my focus. Oh, praying before a show. So I never did that. I never even thought about doing it.
Yeah.
But in my prayers at Sunday Mass or something, I'm like, dear Lord, help us to be safe on the road. Help me always to be growing in my musicality. I don't really think I prayed for a bigger career. I don't remember that. I think I was just connected to God, and He was like just there with me, helping me along, is all I can say. So that's just a different perspective. Most people, I think, they'll say, "Oh, pray about it," whereas sometimes you can pray, and I've done that too in my life, as mentioned in the book, where I've prayed very specifically for things. Anyway, I am losing my focus of what your question
That's
was.
okay. That's okay. But
Oh,
I have just a couple. I know that I'm probably taking too much of your time, but there's still a couple of things I want to cover. So, how old are you when you met your husband?
19.
You were 19, and then you had this incredibly beautiful, sweet, so many beautiful, sweet stories about your relationship. And then you guys split up for 10 years. I'm like, what just happened there? Um, can you tell us about like why the split up? And then how did you pick up after you split up, if you know what I mean?
Sure, sure. Um, well, I would say a combination of things. Janelle tells me now, and he said this confidently in front of our kids. He's like, I knew I was going to marry your mom. Like, I knew, like, the first time I met her. I knew the first time I met her. I did not know that. For those 2 years that we dated, our careers, Janelle with Leahy, me with the Natalie McMaster thing, really took off, busy wise. So it provided, I guess it created a bit of a distraction in the mind or something. You're just busy doing all these things. And I think that was part of the reason why maybe we weren't as focused on one another. We like became sort of a little less focused. There's just a lot going on. I think that played a little part. I also think that just through time, it just I wasn't feeling it. Janelle wasn't feeling it. I mean, he says he was, but he allowed me to. I mean, you can't make somebody, um, continue on with things. And it just sort of like ended. Like it just sort of felt like it was right to end it. I was embarking on a whole bunch of big trips over to Europe and those sorts of things, which I was excited about. There wasn't seemingly occasions where we could see each other as much, like we were seeing each other less frequently. Yeah, and just I mentioned in the book about how to commit for life at age 20 and 21, like I was 21 when we broke up. I wasn't there, like I wasn't there to commit for life. And it's a young age to do that too. Like, were we going to just keep dating? So when we broke up, over the next number of years, like Danelle dated other people and I dated other people. And there was just no comparison. It wasn't like I was pining for Danelle through that time, but just other people that I dated, there was not near the parallels. But they were nice guys and all this. But when Danelle and I started going out again, and the reason why we started going out again was because I was home for Easter, and Danelle must have known that, and he called me, and I was very excited, like, because I thought, oh my gosh, he is talking to me. Like, he's so much time had passed. I just thought maybe he's moved on and that sort of thing. Again, I wasn't pining for him. I guess I had a lot of trust. One thing that I never did was like, oh my gosh, I'm 29, I have no boyfriend. No, am I gonna get married? I'd love to have kids. Like, I never felt like that. Never felt like that. I guess I just trusted that, this is my life and it'll work out. Anyway, when Danelle and uh, when he was down in Nova Scotia and phoned me, he said, I'm in Halifax. I drove to Halifax to meet him. And it was just so different. It was like, for me, it was so very different. I just saw him more clearly.
Oh, I'm not gonna. The story of how he proposed was so beautiful. I was just like sitting at the edge of my seat thinking, and then the way you described your wedding, like there's so much goodness in your book. Um,
Dorothy, I might say too, for from a wife's perspective, like Danelle deserved to have me like see him like that. When we were dating when I was younger, I didn't see him to that extreme, and he didn't deserve to have me see him for less than what he was, right? I mean, I knew
yes.
he was a guy, there was no question. But I think I was just young and immature. Like, I didn't know. I grew up with a lot of great people. Here's another great person. Like, but then when you live some life, you realize that was precious. And so I'm just so grateful that I think that hiatus, he deserved to be seen the way that he was. And those eyes got opened to that.
I know, and God, God used that time for the both of you in different ways, right? He used that time. Now, so he proposes. You have this beautiful wedding. The wedding was, I'm like, oh gosh, I wish I would have known her and been invited to that wedding. It just sounded so beautiful. Actually, last night when I was rereading your book and underlining, I couldn't stop thinking about one of my old roommates was Melanie Doan. And so I'm texting Melanie. I'm like, Melanie, you're never going to guess who I'm interviewing tomorrow. She goes, make sure you say hi to her from me. And because she's in Halifax right now. And so her dad, both her and her dad are saying hello. But anyway, so you get married, have this beautiful wedding, and the folks in Nova Scotia, like, yeah, I delivered some training programs in Halifax, and like they are different, right? Like folks are just so kind and so gentle and so nice, but then bada boom, bada bing, you can't have any children. You've faced like life smacked you in the face with infertility. Can you tell us a little bit about that journey?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Um, Before I forget, tell Melanie Doan and her father, I said a very warm, big hello back. Secondly, you're just getting right to the good stuff. I'll tell you, Dorothy, you're just right on the hot stuff. And thirdly, to answer your question, so we were married for well, we got married, and I never kind of thought too much about choosing kids. Like, I know that's such a thing. Like, people talk about, oh, I wanted this many kids, or we stopped after this many, or I just never thought like that. I mean, I had dreams of kids. I thought, "Oh, maybe I'll have three boys and three girls. But I guess I just didn't think it was for me to choose. I just have always had that kind of like mindset, like, what are you going to get kind of thing is for uh, my mindset. And so we didn't plan too much. After about 6 months, I thought, well, I remember us saying, it'd be nice to start having kids soon. And with all this program, I'm sure you're aware of all those different like natural family planning with the Creighton method and Billings methods. There's all sorts of different things. So I knew, like, when we had our marriage course, I had learned about all that, and so I knew that you know within normal fertility, within normal fertility, especially when you're trying to achieve a pregnancy, it should happen within 6 months. So when that didn't happen and we'd been married a year, I'm like, okay, I think we have to go see a doctor because the lady who had taught me the Creighton model, she was saying, yeah, you should probably go see a doctor. And so I went to the Marguerite Bourgeois Family Care Center in Toronto, where I met one of your guests, Dr.
Yeah.
Cotadella.
And Dr. Julia Catadella is a very, very dear friend, and it's a different topic, but she saved my life. So that's a different topic, a different day. But so you met Dr. Julia Catadella, okay? Uh-huh.
And through her, I will say she saved that, like she helped create this, this solution and to having kids. And I credit her with helping us through all that time. So yeah, just there's certain protocol from the doctor's perspective. They check out a whole bunch of things, and she was very skilled and knowledgeable on all that. And I really felt like, oh, thank gosh, we're in this system of the medical system as opposed to the typical medical system, because oh my God, I hear all the time that it's just that's a whole other network. They don't view fertility the same way, and they don't view the solutions to it the same way. So I think this is the fast track, really, this natural family planning. It's so purposeful, and the how they have how they have the I guess the system for it is, I think, is really great. I'm not articulating myself perfectly here, but I really loved how we were treated, and I loved the care, and I loved how quickly, things progressed, and how we knew so quickly also that, okay, something's now perfectly normal here. And I mean, there was a couple of different factors in the end that could have been this, could have been that, but whatever it was in the end, I probably received care for that particular, like not having children for about maybe almost 2 years, or maybe a year and a half. And I kept praying about it, of course, and saying novenas. I love St. Therese novenas. I've used them a lot over the years. And this one day we get roses after I was saying a novena, and I was so excited. Like, I actually bought myself flowers, and I noticed the next day that there was little baby roses in the bouquet I bought. That was the first time in my life I ever bought myself flowers. I just never thought to do that in my life. I was just, now I'm married, and there's springtime and whatever. I was on tour for a long time. And so when Danelle got home, I was so excited to tell him, oh my gosh, there's roses in her bouquet. Like, I was freaking out. And he just looked at me, Natalie, you bought those. He goes, you can't answer your own novena, Nat. Like, Danelle, like, do you think I went out and bought myself, as if I could make myself pregnant? Like, come on. So I didn't know it then. I was actually pregnant then. I did not know that at the time. But anyway, I went and got blood work done, and turns out I was pregnant at that time. And when I got the news from Dr. Julia Cotadella, it was just, I still remember it. My knees get weak thinking about it. I thought I was just going to pass out with joy.
I remember too, your husband saying, is it okay if I swear? Like, holy shit, we're pregnant.
Totally. Yeah. Gosh, it was just so amazing. And I just don't think there was any more amazing moment in my life.
Yeah.
That day that Danelle proposed were over the top.
Yeah, no, and so another shout out I want to give to all of the moms that are listening. So, like, number one, you got to have a party, right? Number two, listen to your kind of inner knowing. And another thing is, if you have some type of a problem or some type of a cross or some type of a like huge agony in your life, because we all have different agonies, right? For some of you, it might be you're trying to find an affordable place to live. For some of you, you might be trying to find a job. For some of you, your kids are trying to find a spouse. Like, we're all carrying something. And, like, sometimes people would look at someone like Natalie and say, oh, well, she's never had any crosses. She's got 100 kids and she's a fiddler and she's got a beautiful family. And it's like, but until you read the book, you think this woman was praying novenas, was at rock bottom, you know, praying her way through this. And so, and she also sought professional help. So I say, like, whatever problem you have, there's a person out there that has had that problem. Find them. And, like, you know, in the Jubilee year of hope, which is now past, is never to give up hope, right? And so I wanted to kind of highlight um, the very real crosses. And I know, you know, many times in your book, you mentioned the burnout and how calling your mom was often a saving grace because you'd be like at the end of your rope thinking, I don't know if I can fiddle anymore. And your mom's like, you got to plow through this, girl. Like you gotta plow through it. Now, we're almost done here. It was funny because again, I think I mentioned to you before the interview that like I really had no idea who you were and I had no idea the scope of your success. And yesterday I was talking to Jason, a guy that kind of produces some of our ministry videos, and he goes, "Oh, well, she's married to the Lays," and I'm like, "Oh, does that mean something?" You know, like I had no idea, right? And he goes, "Yeah, they're an internationally famous, you know, very Catholic, successful." And I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know, I didn't know." So, again, tell me a little bit about your husband because you, again, you speak of him with so much love and so much, so fondly, and I guess because he comes from a large family, he was like a real natural when it came to being a dad. So tell us a little bit about your husband.
Oh my gosh. Talk about all the people that are so close to like my favorites in all the world. So anyway, does come from a very well-known, famous group of musicians.
Well, wait, I can't hear you anymore. I
Why
can't,
not?
I can't hear you.
Huh.
Can anyone else hear?
And they would often be at the same festivals and concerts, and so they knew each other a little bit, you know. They were both step dancers and that sort of thing, so kind of cute. Danelle's father, his people came from County Cork, so he had the Irish blood, and he and his wife Julie raised these 11 children in the music and the faith and farming. They were big farmers. And so when I got into the Leahy world, I discovered how I was always amazed how well they got along, actually. I was always amazed how well they got along. I, yeah. And especially touring together and stuff all the time. I just thought, wow, this is really amazing. So when I married into that family, I was so proud to be part of such a beautiful thing. And Danelle specifically, he has an ability on the fiddle like I've never seen. People will often say, "Who's better, you or Danelle?" I'm like, Danelle. Danelle can play circles around me. Of course, my kids will say, "Yeah, but mom, you know, he can't do this or that, or you feel this way, or like whatever." And it's not about that. It's not about. I'm just trying to put in perspective uh, how like really gifted he is as a fiddler. Like it's not about uh, accolades and all those things. I'm just talking from his musicality, his capability. He practiced so much before we started dating. He just blossomed into this incredible virtuoso. He's still every time I hear him on stage, I'm completely captivated. It's as if I'm watching him for the first time. So that's his musicality. As far as like a person, he just the Leahys, they just have such good or well formed um, morals and consciences and direction in life, and it's all faith based. It's all their faith. It's all how their parents raised them. An incredible work ethic growing up on the farm. that is so attractive to me, that work ethic I just love. And then, oh my gosh, Danelle is the best father. Like, I knew that when we were dating. Like, I'm like, this guy is unreal. He's so good with kids. It's insane. Like, I would watch him with all his little nieces and nephews. Honestly, it was just so entertaining. You could sit just sometime, you could just put Danelle in a room with kids and watch the show. Watch what unfolds. He's just, there's nothing like it. I keep telling him the stories that he's made up on the spot with our kids. Like, I have some of them recorded. I'm like, I am making a book someday and you're the author and I'm just going to help you create it. But he's just brilliant in that way. He's just, yeah, even still, he's 57, and of course his youngest daughter Maria is 7, and he just reverts right back to the same things like he did when he was, in his 20s. So he's just got that really fantastic ability to connect with youth.
Yeah, I watched one of your videos. I think it's your son playing the accordion, and the two of you were on either. Do you have a son, Michael? Is that correct? Yeah. And so I saw your, husband on one side, your son in the middle, and you on the other, and I was just rejoicing at the harmony, rejoicing at the harmony. Um, Now, last topic, and I really appreciate the time that you've taken because it's such a rare opportunity, to talk to you. The last topic is motherhood and working with your children and homeschooling and oftentimes people would say to me, oh, Dorothy, you just think that every mom should stay at home. And I'm like, well, no, that's not true. What I want every mom to do is to follow the will of God, right? And if the will of God, if you're united with the will of God and you're praying and you're sensing and you're discerning, um, yeah, we've got, St. John Namola, who is a medical doctor and a mom. We've got, in today's world, Lisa Canning, who, works and has a zillion kids, and you yourself, and so I know that in your book you kind of talked about some of the struggles and some of the doubts, but now all your kids kind of come along on the road with you, right? Can you talk about a little bit about that transition to motherhood and some of the things it stirred in you? And I know that your father-in-law um, kind of really encouraged you, and that you mentioned too that when you fiddled that it was exhilarating and it was better than any spa, and it rejuvenated you and gave you the energy to be the best mom that you can be. So can you just give us like some thoughts on, because our mission is to revitalize motherhood as a vocation, is understanding that, okay, you're going to be accountable to God for these souls, right? And you can't take your role as a parent lightly. And like, gosh, I could go on and on talking to you, but I love all of the parenting tips too that you gave through the book. I'm like, these tips are just so incredible. And then the recipes, like I'm telling you, um, I contacted her publisher and I said, like, I want to buy 22 copies of this book because I can think of people right away that I know need to get this book. So anyway, so tell me a little bit about your journey into becoming a mother, the struggles, and then
Sure.
releasing yourself
Sure.
into
I'll
your.
say is, we don't. I wonder about things all the time. I'm wondering, is this the right way to do it? Is this the right way to do it? So it's hard to really know till decades have passed and you look at what the product is of how you lived your life and the choices that you made. So, but I mean, I feel that I'm with you, Dorothy, in that my sense is that the mother has to spend a lot of time with her kids. Generally, that means you have to be home with them. But um, but like you said, what's the will of God? I mean, our small minds think one way, but the broad, like the great and glorious Lord, maybe has other ways in which, for myself, I never ever could conjure up living the way I'm living. Like I can't imagine that. And I often wonder, oh, should I have given it all up and just stayed home all the time with kids? And I have nothing showing me that that's what should have happened. I've never lost sleep over that, thinking I'm doing something wrong. I've never sensed that I was supposed to do that. So I assume that the way I've chosen to do things, based on how Danelle and I, as a couple, kind of have been led to believe, um, is the way that it was meant to be. Our
Mhm.
kids, there's no signs that show that they've been deprived of something they should have had or not have had something they should have. Or have had something they shouldn't have had. So, so for me, I just, you know, this baby comes along. I'm pregnant. It's like, oh my gosh, okay, this is what we hoped for. Now what? Like, we've got thriving careers. I've got 150 shows on the books for next year. How are we going to do this? So I wasn't one to get too caught up with the future. I'm still like that because I don't have space in my mind too much to think about how we're going to work that out or what's going to happen. We just kind of figure it out as we go. And so with having a baby, I had thought I'll probably have to cancel these shows, especially ones that are 5 weeks after Mary Frances would be born. Pardon me, I'm sorry, my throat's a little off.
No, no, I'm carrying you on too long here.
So it was Danelle who said, Nat, you don't know until you try. And I really took those words to heart. Maybe I wanted to believe them. I don't know. Danelle and I had never had a discussion about me staying home or the roles that we would play. And I'm glad about that. We just do things because it's so natural for us to do them, even still. Like, who takes out the garbage? Who makes the meals? Who drives so and so to here? Who drives so and so to there? There's so many things about how we live our lives that we never discussed. They just happen. It's just the roles have fallen into those places. And that is really good and natural. And so for me and playing the fiddle, he said, why don't you give it a try? And I talked to my sister-in-laws. I said, what's it like nursing a baby? And like, traveling. And when Mary Frances was, I think, 6 months old, we went to France. I had to decide on that gig before she was born. So, you're trying to guess what's it going to be like. So if I could, now being 53 and having gone through raising 7 kids in those ways, on tour, crazy, crazy schedules, we have lived a life that's been very unpredictable, not a lot of routine, kind of roll with it kind of thing, just put your head down, put the horns on and plow through, or bull through it, get her done kind of thing. And we've also lived life where we have time at home, where we can be somewhat normal, and everything in between. And the long and short of it, I think you just have to make choices to the best of your ability. One of my prayers is often, look, I'm going to use my intellect for this. I'm going to make my best choice. And God, if I'm not doing the right thing, please stop me. Put up roadblocks. And I find that to be a very effective prayer for me. That's kind of how I have the faith or trust to go on with my decisions.
Can you repeat that prayer? Just because, what did you just say that? I'm sorry.
I was just saying how an effective prayer for me has always been, I make my own choice. Danelle and I will decide things, or maybe it's something for me to choose, and use my intellect as best I can, and then just pray to God, if I'm doing the wrong thing, please stop me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's worked very well.
Oh, that's beautiful. Anyway, Natalie, I've got to just thank you for how generous you've been with your time, and thank you for your yes. And when you first came on to the camera here. I'm like, oh, she's wearing a miraculous medal. We'll be best friends for life, right? So just thank you for your public witness to the Catholic faith. I just want to just quickly scroll through because like people were making comments and asking questions that I was a bit selfish and I ignored them. My goodness. Okay, so hello, Teresa from Barry's Bay. Hello, Martine, Kathy Taylor. Hello, welcome everyone. Martha McVoy from Brooklyn. Therese from Cambridge. Christina, one of our Catholic Moms Group leaders from Etobicoke. Hello. Jeanette. Hello from Georgina, Ontario. Lisa Kosar. Hello from Norwood. Thank you for joining us today, Liz Garcia. Liz and I were in kindergarten together. So Annie Carto from Treasure Island, Florida. She's an amazing singer. Hello from Ottawa. Hello from Vermont, USA. Claude. Yeah, no, we've got. Are you asking, Dorothy, is there a stage version of Natalie versus an off-stage version of Natalie? I don't know. Is there? I don't know. Okay. I hope we get a little ditty before the interview's over. Are you going to be able to play or sing something or do something? I think that
And
might,
did he as in play the fiddle?
yeah, or something, anything, because people are,
I can play you out. I did have my fiddle in here. I think one of the kids borrowed it. I can grab it, but I will comment about the stage version. Absolutely. Like before I got on for this camera, I'm like, not looking like this, honey. No, no. I'm like, you put your best self to the public. So when I'm on stage, I give you my best self. I, prepare, I practice, I want to be vibrant. I want to make the music translate to people. I give tons of energy. Yeah, definitely. When you would come and visit me in my home without me knowing, there's going to be a mess in the house. The dishes probably won't be done. I'll be madly working on something. I will be scheduled to death. Like, oh my gosh, so-and-so's has to be there. So-and-so's has to be there. I've only got a 10-minute window to work on this thing. I've got something to work on that. So I'm very, like, I'll probably be, I wouldn't look like, or I wouldn't be giving my best outward because I've been focusing on all the responsibilities and duties inward. But one of the comments I often hear, right, good or bad, people always say, "What you see is what you get." Like I hear all that all the time from people who know me and like my friends or my acquaintances or things like that. They're just the same on stage as off. So whatever that means, there's an element of both, I think.
yeah, no, and thank you for that. Thanks for taking the time to answer that. Okay, so Ashley says, lovely, the music brought the two of you together. Um, if I recall, Natalie you have 8 children or 7? Someone is saying here.
7.
You've got 7 children. Okay, so someone's read your book and they're saying how much they loved it. We read that comment. Claude says she's excited to read the book after the interview. Someone else says we need to see more Catholic Canadians who impact this society, especially now. What a great role model from Canada, born and bred. Like we do need more moms, and speaking publicly about their faith and about their professions and about their years ago I used to belong to the National Speakers Association. We went to California for a conference, and this woman wasn't Catholic, but it was a conference of like 4,000 or 5,000 speakers, and she says, I want to thank publicly Jesus Christ for the opportunity of being the president of this association. And it was to a secular audience. And, her name is Naomi Rhodey. She's from Arizona. And I invited her to my wedding, and her and her husband flew out for it. And it was like, how come more people don't do that? How come more people don't publicly declare their love of God? So when I read your book, I was just like, I was so excited. Like there it all is. Annie, Wow, how beautiful your story is. We need to have new eyes to see beauty and love. Anyway, there's a lot of comments here. So many comments. Oh my goodness. Now I'm feeling guilty that I ignored them all, but we can only do so much. If
Dorothy, while you're sharing the comments, I'm gonna grab my fiddle, okay?
Okay, okay, good. Perfect. So there's a comment here from Christina Cox and an exhilarating book. Thank you, Dorothy and the Catholic Moms Group for hosting this interview for a person and book we adore and are so blessed to support. Um, I Have a Love Story by Natalie McMaster. National bestseller is available now. It was sold out on Amazon. I did get one copy at Sherway Gardens, and then I did write to her publisher saying I wanted to buy 20 copies, and I'm waiting to hear from him. I wanted to offer a giveaway today, but I don't want to offer a giveaway until I hear back from him. So anyway, let's do it.
Dorothy, I'll just say to everyone that's been watching, thank you. I was sitting here when we were starting thinking, oh, think of all the wonderful people and mothers who are just, tuning into us. I thought I'm connected to them right now, and I don't know where they are, who they are, all these things, but we're here. We're desiring the same thing in life, in that we just want to be good moms. We want to be inspired. We want to feel like we're doing God's will. We want to be able to discern what that is. We want to, work on our flaws in life. We always seek to try and be better. And these are great things. And we're here together trying to do it. So I
Yeah.
feel really grateful that you all chimed in with us today for this chat. Thanks a lot.
And Natalie, if you ever are called to have like a book signing, a wine and cheese or something in Toronto, I'd be glad to host it. And I can get bums in the seats. That's one thing I can do. So anyway, so just please know that we're here with open arms, whether it's in May, June, July. Anyway, would love to organize something like that and have a book signing here in Toronto with Catholic Moms Group. Yeah.
That's really sweet. Thanks a lot, Dorothy.
Yeah.
Shall we play out?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay.
Okay. It's not. We can't hear. It's not coming through. Yeah. Cannot hear. Can't hear it. I can't. We can't hear it. Come, Holy Spirit, Saint Michael, the Archangel, defend us in battle, save us from the wickedness and snares of the devil. May God rebuke him, we humbly pray. We couldn't hear it for some reason.
Aww.
Yeah, just so some people are saying cannot hear Saint Cecilia. So I guess maybe this is a sign that we need you live in Toronto for a book signing and some fiddle playing and some wine.
I guess so. I guess so. It's probably the connection too. Like I find when I play tunes for Mama over the phone, they don't come out very well. So no worries, it's fine.
Okay. So just for all of you that are here today, I would like to ask who here would be willing to pray a full rosary for Natalie and her family. We didn't have time to talk about all of her children, but as a thank you to Natalie, I'm looking for a couple of people. Like I'm going to offer a full rosary tonight. So Madeleine Asperti said, yep, she's praying a full rosary. Martha said she's praying a full rosary. Catherine Taylor's going to pray a rosary for you and your family. Cheryl Thompson is going to pray a rosary for you and your family. Carmela Petrabion is going to pray. Lisa is going to pray a full rosary. Full rosary, Kristina Zasowski for Natalie and her family. Susan Tetman is praying a full rosary for you and your family. Eileen is praying a full rosary for your family. Lisa is praying a full rosary for your family tonight. And Ashley Keys. So you are going to be covered in a lot of rosaries today. We're going to pray for all of your children, for your husband, for your marriage, for each and every one of you. Excellent interview, Dorothy and Natalie. Thank you both and congratulations. And thank you, Madalena, for being as persistent as you were, because and thank you for writing this book. I'm asking each and every one of you, if you know any woman that has 1.2 children, get her a copy of this book, because so many of us cut ourselves off from life, from goodness, from being fruitful, because we think it's going to limit us. And in fact, like, that's what I loved about this book. I could just kiss it. Is it just shows that with God, all things are possible, right? And all things are possible. And you just described it so beautifully in the book, Natalie. Thank you. And thank you for your time. And thank all of you who signed on today, because if you didn't sign on today, there'd be no point, right? So thank you. So hopefully we can talk to you again sometime, but please know that today you're going to be showered in prayer. And we'll also be praying for, your mom, who I'm sure is just glowing with, and your dad. And anyway, so thank you very much. I always say, like Carol Burnett used to say, I'm so glad we had this time together, just to have a laugh and sing a song. Seems we just get started, and before you know it, comes a time we have to say so long. And I don't want to hang up because this has been so beautiful. But anyway, thank you. Thank you very much, Natalie. And thank all of you for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's interview, send me an email why you enjoyed it. And if I hear back from Natalie's publisher, we might have a couple of giveaways. But the only way I can put your name in the giveaway is if I get an email from you stating you enjoyed it and why you enjoyed it. So send me an email. And if I get that case of books, then we'll put you in a draw. Okay? Okay, take care. God bless. And thank you for wearing the miraculous medal. Bye-bye.
Thank you for the prayers. Thank you, everyone. Thanks so much, Dorothy. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Bye now.